How about now? Can you feel it, Mr. Krabs? Hi guys, my name is Carlita and welcome back to the very second episode of my podcast, Carlita Unplugged, a podcast where I take you on a journey and read to you some of my poems and then open up and give you kind of the reason behind it. Now this podcast will also be available on YouTube and you can actually see me as I record this. But if you prefer to just listen to audio, then that's perfectly fine. So, of course, I told you last time the story of Patrick and how I thought that it was the end of the world. And I also mentioned that he had generated a few other poems. So, here I am today, and I will be reading those poems. And I won't be so much going back and talking about Patrick because I don't want everybody to think that Patrick's a terrible person. Patrick did hit me up after my very first podcast, and Patrick probably will be listening to this podcast. So he's not a bad guy. It's just as a teenager, you feel your emotions and you go through it. You understand. You guys should understand. But I did write these poems back to back. That is why there's so many of them, because it was in the middle of that heartbreak, that hurt, that deep hurt. And I just had to get my emotions out. So today I will be reading another one of the poems that Patrick generated. I won't be talking about him anymore though. I'll go over more of like general relationship life type of, conversation. So let me grab my iPad so I can read it. So the first one was titled Her Pain. This one was titled Broken. Looking at the shattered pieces of my life, it's like an old, worn-out puzzle. Some pieces were lost, some were repressed. My life is a box of chocolates. Some pieces given away, and some were smushed. But it's the significance of the pieces that aren't there makes me stronger yet weak, disables my ability to thrive in life, slowly beginning to become stale until nothing can penetrate. This becomes the shield that protects my heart, which is only a cocoon of flesh for my soul. Marked in critical condition, resting in intensive care, heavily medicated on a pill called time, and it's living off of trust support. Should I pull the plug? Whoa, I didn't realize how dark I was back in the day. When I go through a heartbreak, let me tell you, I go through a heartbreak. And in terms of like damage that it's done to my life, Patrick is kind of like a cherry on top of whipped cream on top of a sundae. I've had some real rough damage done to me in my life after Patrick. I was soon to find out that Patrick was nothing in terms of heartbreaks. And also, like I said in my first podcast, I'm emotional. I'm overly emotional. I feel like to a fault sometimes. And one thing that I have learned getting older and getting into relationships is, and I've had to come to terms with it, and I can't be upset because no one can feel the way I feel, and I don't expect everyone to feel the way I feel because then that would be selfish. I don't want to look at relationships as one-sided and jaded because of how I feel, and this is how the world should feel. No, I have to come to terms with the fact that yes, I am an overly emotional person. Yes, it is difficult for me to process things that regular people may be able to process. But at the same time, I will not throw a hissy fit because I can't get my way in terms of what I want from someone when it comes to a relationship. And the lesson I've learned growing up throughout the years is feelings can be mutual. Yes, they can be mutual. But that does not mean that they are always equal. You can like somebody and they can like you. But the levels are different, and you have to understand and cope with that. And that is something that I've had to understand and cope with my entire life. Once I began to realize it, I couldn't just ignore it, because if I had ignored it, then I would be very selfish when it comes to relationships. And so sometimes my feelings get hurt and they get bruised more than the other person. And I will never let them know, honestly, because I'm not for feeling like the center of attention when it comes to something bad. You know, I always want to be that person that has my life together. And clearly, you know, it's not always like that. That's why I got poems, because my life is not always together. But yes, I can't help to feel heavy when I do feel my emotions. So it's something that I just gotta roll with, you know, take it day by day, take my lessons as they come. And I want to know, is anyone else like that, or is it just me? Because when I say I'm emotional, I mean, like, you put on a compilation of like military members like surprising their family members and coming home, I cry. I promise you, I cry. I can't tell you why, and I don't know any of these people in these videos I watch, but I cry like a baby. Like, you put on a sad scene from a movie or a TV show, I cry. Yeah, it's bad. I just get overly emotionally connected. I think it's maybe, who knows, but it's something I gotta deal with. And it is a good thing, because sometimes for me, I never try to do anything malicious or rude. If I know it's gonna make you feel a certain type of way, I don't do that. But at the same time, I feel like I'm genuine to a fault, because a lot of times my actions are misunderstood. And if I feel like you should know me and you know better than to think that I would do that, my feelings get hurt. I get in my head a lot, especially when I'm hanging around people. If I'm around a crowd, or if I'm around somebody that I have feelings for, I get in my head a lot. And I don't know why. I can't control it. And when it comes, sometimes it's so bad, I just kind of shut down. And that's not healthy, right? It's not something that I want to be an ongoing pinnacle in my life, that every time I get in my head or get overly emotional, and something that 9 times out of 10, I'm overreacting. But because of how I feel, that's usually all I know how to do. But I don't act out my overreactions. I can overreact to something and be hurt deeply and you wouldn't know. I would just be quiet. I wouldn't let you know, because I want to be the person that helps someone. But that's not always the case. But back to the poem, you can clearly tell how I felt like I was just ripped apart. And that's how heartbreaks are. And they've only gotten worse over the years, honestly. But I've gotten stronger. So I've learned lessons, and I've survived some storms and some wreckage. And I feel like I've gotten stronger. I really have. If I was to take me now and go back to Patrick, and he was to do the same thing he did, knowing what's to come, I would be like, oh, okay, that's fine. We can be friends. Like, I can do all of that. But I didn't. So, and over the years, like I said, it's only gotten worse, but that's because, like I said, I'm emotional. It didn't seem like the end of the world to me. I don't believe in the extreme, because going through puberty, like, everything is extreme. Honestly, guy or girl, it doesn't matter who's listening. Everything's extreme, and your hormones are crazy. But adult life. Heartbreaks are something else. There's something else. There's like completely different world. And there are poems about that as well. But we won't be getting into that just yet. That's when it gets
deep.
So, and it's not just poems dedicated to exes. It's poems dedicated to me, poems dedicated in general to issues that everybody has, right? So don't think this is just going to be a bunch of like, I got my heart broken, I wrote a poem. I'm not Taylor Swift and I'm not Adele. I cannot make money off of it. And it's not always the case. It's just regular life shit, honestly. You go through life, you experience things, you feel emotions about it, you write it down. If you don't write, you paint. If you don't paint, I'm not gonna say you drink, but I know there's people out there who do. So, because it's not a good habit. So, in turn, we all have our outlets that we use when we feel a certain type of way. And we all may have felt in a position where we just feel like it's just been so bad that there is no way you can recover. But at the end of the day, like the saying goes, trouble doesn't last always. Even in the world, we have hurricanes, tornadoes, typhoons, earthquakes, volcano eruptions. And yes, when they happen, they are bad. They do some serious damage. Just like a heartbreak does serious damage. But what comes after is what matters the most. After a tornado, we pick up the pieces and we rebuild. After a hurricane, we pick up the pieces and we rebuild. And after a heartbreak, we pick up the pieces, we rebuild, and we continue to grow stronger. We continue to grow stronger. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day, is being able to take the lesson from the scenario. And it doesn't matter what scenario it is. It can be a good one, it can be a bad one. And figure out how to apply that lesson to your life and to keep it going. That's my goal. Life isn't your actions. Life is how you react to situations, in my opinion. How you react to what happens to you is how your life goes. So I try to be cautious and conscious about my reactions, because I know it can affect everything. So that's all I have for this episode. We've got one more poem to get through when it comes to Patrick, who, I don't know if I mentioned, he hit me up. So I know he's listening. Kind of awkward. But after that, we'll be out of the Patrick phase and we'll be on to the next. And it might be about something different. You never know. Until next time, my name is Carlita, and thank you for tuning in. We're gonna figure this shit out.